I know it's late, but I have to do a disclaimer to say that everyone who spoke earlier, it saddens me in my position. And so that means that I have to work even harder. I have to speak even more and to stop the parents, the educators, the student, not stop them, but to stop what's going on to them. I wanted to share with you a little bit tonight about the East Side Band. I came to Gainesville back in '72. Some of you weren't even thought of at that time, but I used to go to the Gator parades, and during that era, that band that was a legacy of Richard E. Parker, who finished from Florida A&M. And if you know anything about Florida A&M and the 100, then you know that he came well-versed in everything that he did. What I noticed about the parade, and I went to the parade last Friday, and what was disappointing to me was that no bands were in that parade because of the inclement weather that we should have been receiving that didn't happen. But the night before at Citizen Field, GHS and Eastside High played each other, and I heard that it was torrential rain. And so because of that, the band directors decided we don't want to subject the students to that weather or the instruments that can be damaged. So that was why we did not have any bands other than the University of Florida band in the parade on last Friday. The East Side alumni band was there, but that was still not students. So here we go. I want to move to 2017 since I was going to talk about 2018 and what I see with the band. But I want to just say that back in the day, when you had Gator players, you had queens of the University of Florida on floats, you had Boy Scout troops and Girl Scout troops, Flag Corps. People were excited about the parade like anyone else. But the difference was when East Side Band, which normally was the last thing in the parade, the moves that those people could do, the way they could move, and they would stop in certain sections of University Avenue and do their moves. And the crowd would go, wow, because of what they were being entertained by. Now, I want you to know that the crowd also followed that band. They almost merged with the band, and they moved right on down the street. Well, some things have changed. And when you look at the band now, I started wondering, where are the children that look like me? What happened to them? Why is the great band director that we have currently at Eastside, Mr. Joe Hughes, what has happened? And I was told, well, there's a difference than when Richard Parker was over the band, and that is that now we call it a Showtime band, which means they walk and they play their instruments. And it's nothing really wrong with that, but when you think of children of color and the culture that we are from, it's great to be able to play your instrument. It's very nice that you can sight read music. It is very nice that you can read music. But there is more to just classical type music. I think there should be genres of all music for bands. But here's what has happened. And if you thought about it when you looked, or if it's just me, that the majority of the students in the East Side Band now are white students. And I wonder why. Well, you have to go back to the middle school section. The middle school is where you learn how to play. In 6th grade, you learn how to read music. You learn the fundamentals of the band. But if you're not taking band because you're in remedial reading or you're in remedial math, you don't get to participate in the band. I think we heard an educator earlier saying, all we're seeming to do right now is teach for the test. Well, I think that we need to do something differently, and so that children, students, can participate. If you don't have the fundamentals and you go to an East Side High, the band director is not going to be able to teach everything that you needed to have earned and learned in middle school. So that's an issue. When you get to high school, and when I look at the band over at Bishop, and Bishop is a feeder school to East Side, the majority of those students are white students in that band. So what do you expect? There's going to be no difference when they get to East Side High. One of the things that I'm hoping will change, that number one, that we will look at the situation that we have with this band. Number one, I found out in researching this, not only is it because of what the children are having to take in middle school, why there may be a disconnect when they get to high school, but the band at Eastside, the majority of those students, in fact, 90% of them are IB students. Let me say another piece. That band program at Eastside, it starts at 0 period. 0 period means parents bring the children to Eastside before school starts. Think about that. Think about the advantage that they have because they have parents who can bring the students. As I finish up, I want this community to think, how can we revitalize what we used to have as a band program? One of the things about the culture of students of color, there were times when you were in drama, you were in chorus, you were in the band, and you were able to later move on to a 4-year institution and maybe major in those same fine arts, which gave you a career path to when you got out, just like Mr. Richard Parker had when he went to Florida A&M and came back to Gainesville to teach band. We have heard so many different stories tonight, and I had more to say, but it is late. I'm going to ask the rest of you who are here in this auditorium, what are you willing to do? What can you do to stop many of the things that you heard tonight? I would like to see the Eastside Band go back to not 1972, but be more diversified or diverse people in the band. What do you think that the children feel who have not had the opportunity in middle school to learn the fundamentals of the band program? In Eastside High School, it's basically the same thing. 1, 0 band at the beginning of school before regular classes. 2, the lack of children who look like me because of their situation that occurred in middle school. I want to ask you to think about it as you're driving home. What is the difference that the community can do? How can you help the school system? You heard 4 different stories before I got here. What are you going to do? Are you going to say, well, that was interesting on the way home? Or are you going to actually think about what difference can we make? I know many of you here in this auditorium, and so I'm expecting to see you at board meetings. I'm expecting you to blow us up if that's what's necessary. I don't mind that. I have a hard shell. But I always say that you need to speak up, as Ms. Richardson said. If you see something, say it. If you need something, say it. I get my phone calls all the time. I am so glad that I have help on the board now, because I will be shifting many of those calls to that number. Thank you.